And I think we're live again.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we're back live. You guys got to experience that. I guess you guys got to see that awkward silence there for just a little bit. So the stream is back. Hopefully the audio is working better now than it was before. We do have an update. We are going to have it looks like it's going to be a Protoss versus Zerg coming up next. It looks like Team Infused is sending out this guy with the name that I can't pronounce. It does look like we're going to be seeing O-U-R-K, Orc. Somebody that knows how those letters fit together that are pronounced, let me know a little bit better. We are going to be seeing this on the map Calm Before the Storm, though. So what do you think about this map choice, Pyronia?
You know, I like this map. It's one of those maps that a lot of people don't play. I used to cast it a lot. I think it was like the Round 4 map. In I think the Zeke dailies, and so it's not as common. It would always throw people off because there is this little sort of pocket expansion behind. So for Zergs, it's really nice because it's very easy and safe to take 3 bases. So it sort of depends, but it's a lot of fun. I like the map, but if you haven't played on it, it can be quite frustrating. And I definitely say it's one of the lesser played maps out there as far as ladder maps go. But for Zerg, I can totally see why you would choose it.
Well, actually, this is the Protoss choice, and from what I have actually heard about this map, I mean, I didn't get a chance to see the statistics myself, but from what I've heard, the reason why this map is only available for a single season in the GSL was because it was so highly favorable for Protoss. So, it does look like Infused is really taking Allcrash seriously. They are throwing a Protoss out on one of the best maps for Protoss, I think, in my opinion. So, good choice by Team Infused. We are going to have Orc versus Allcrash on the map Calm Before the Storm. The countdown has just started, and I'm excited to get this back going again, Pyronia.
Yeah, me too. So here we go. We are going to be having our PVZ. So this will be the first Protoss we are seeing this afternoon. We've been seeing some Terrans and Zergs, so we'll be seeing our Protoss, how that fares. I'm very excited. I think it'll be a good choice to throw a Protoss out here, and hopefully he'll bring his team up again. So, spawning over here on the right-hand side of the map, we have our blue Protoss. This is Orc from Team Infused, and he is going to be getting revenge on his opponent, who is going to be our red Zerg. Oh, looks like we're asking for a remake. Some of the hotkeys are wrong. Yeah, since they're all playing on, I think since they're playing on a shared account, he probably didn't think to redo the hotkeys if he plays with something, you know, maybe when he plays with Grid and Moonin didn't. So we just need to get a call on that from Marine.
Alright, so we are going to have a remake, guys. Sorry about that. Like we just said earlier, Team Infused, because they are a European-based team, for all their players, for the purposes of this tournament, they are using a shared account for just for this tournament. So things like hotkeys, audio settings, all those sorts of things. We are all those sorts of things. No, Allcrash, you did not actually take a win right there. They needed to get their hotkey set up for the account, so we are going to have a remake for that game. But it just seemed like we were having all sorts of little problems going on today, Pyronia. Glad that everything on your end is running very smoothly.
Well, except for my webcam, I don't know what's up with it. I don't know. It was fine on Wednesday. Who knows? Do you play with Grid or do you play with normal hotkey setup?
I play with mostly normal hotkeys. I have like certain things like Command Center Liftoff and stuff bound to like different keys. I don't know if I mentioned earlier that though, but I am a random player. So one of the one of the things that I do is, and I actually recommend this to anybody else who plays random out there. I have all of my upgrades streamlined. So what that means is that like for like ground attack upgrades are all bound to A, armor upgrades are all bound to S, and then miscellaneous upgrades are all bound to E. So I have those the same for every single race, so that like whenever I make like an evolution chamber or anything like that, I don't have to remember like the individual hotkeys or anything like that. Like I think car pace for Zerg is like default C or something like that. I don't deal with any of that. It's like it's A for attack, it's S for defense or for armor, and it's E for anything else. So that's my little tips on hotkeys and upgrades. I know that a lot of other people are like, are you serious? That sounds like such beginner stuff. But keep in mind, guys, that we do have a lot of people that are like in the lower leagues that watch these casts, and even people that don't actually play StarCraft. So useful tips for those of you out there that are just getting started.
Looks like Allcrush has some fans in the stream here. Someone is Allcrush Lover. Very exciting. Allcrush has some love. All right. Get out your pom-poms.
I bet that fan is wishing that Allcrush did just take that easy win right there. But no, we are having a remake, so it is going to be a remake of the last game. So spawning down here in the bottom right position of the map, GSL, Calm Before the Storm, we have from Team Infused, our blue Protoss player, Orc. And in the bottom left, we have our red Zerg. From Team Mono Esports, we have Allcrush already up for his team. He actually tied it up, excuse me, so he was able to tie up the series in that last game.
Yep, and so if you were watching Allcrush there, he has his drones rallied. He's trying to get them lined up, so there's already 2 on each mineral patch. It's really amazing how much extra minerals you can bring in over the course of the early game just by trying to get your workers lined up like that. By default, they're going to go to 1 at each mineral patch, so if you can get them where they're lined up like that with 2 on it early on, it actually can be really nice. So just a little bit of a, I don't know, a stylistic thing there. So
it's one of those things where if you know how that works and you have like the early APM to like accommodate it, it's like one of those things that can give you like a small little economic advantage in the early game. But if you're like one of those players that are like, huh, what are you guys talking about? Don't worry about it. Just rally your workers over to the mineral patches by baseline. Any sort of advantage you can get from having your drones like rallied carefully like that is very minor in the early game. But obviously at such a high level of play, every single advantage you can get is worthwhile.
Yeah, and then if you look over here at Team Infused, there's this one mineral patch where the probes are having to go around the back, which just makes it a slower path. And so, you know, it's little things like that that actually differentiate players who are at similar skill levels. So it can be just interesting how something so small and meager can come into play. And it looks like Infused does know this map very well, so he's assuming that the first expansion is going to be going down here at the pocket expansion, whereas Allcrush has chosen to take his front expansion here. So if that doesn't get scouted, it might be a little bit of a surprise here for Orc.
I'm pretty sure that Orc is going to assume that his opponent is actually going for that pocket hatchery down at the, I guess you can consider this the third, well, no, the natural expansion position, excuse me, for Allcrush. He's actually taking his natural expansion down on the low ground. So actually what I'm going to assume is that Orc is actually planning something aggressive behind this. Normally, like, you don't really get much out of blocking an expansion on this map, especially because the alternative position is so easy to take. I think he's trying to just buy himself a few extra seconds so that he can get out his Nexus a little bit earlier, and I think he is going to be going for some kind of like early to mid-game timing attack. At least that's what I think he would be doing following this up.
Looks like he's getting a little bit defensive up here. So he did get an early forge. So he had a forge before his gateway there. So he does have a cannon. So he's preparing for, you know, he might be preparing to tech a little bit just by getting some cannons down there versus some early units. I don't know. 2 gases.
Well, he has to know that his opponent is going to be going for that very early 3 base on this map. It's very rare for Zergs to be doing anything but that on this map. So I'm just trying to think a few steps ahead here. I'm trying to think that he's going to be, why he would be even bothering to go for that pylon block, knowing that it's just so easy for your opponent to just go and take that other expansion. So I'm really curious to see how Orc is going to follow up that opening that he did for this map.
Yeah, I mean, I thought maybe there was a possibility that he was going to drop some cannons down there, actually, but then it looks like he didn't, because that could have been an option of, and part of why he had that fast cannon, or that fast forge, as well as that pylon there. He could have chosen to do that, but nope. So we'll see what his next move is. Looks like he's going to get a stalker out here. Doesn't look like he's chronoing out warp gates or units. I think he must... Oh, nope, there goes the chrono on the warp gate, so I don't know.
He is banking from 2 gas geysers at once right now. He hasn't thrown down any additional assimilators at his natural expansion base. Meanwhile, for Allcrush, he is up now to 32 drones, excuse me. He is going to be droning very hard off of those 3 bases, and we have a Stargate going down for Orc. That is going to be his follow-up to this, and actually I think Allcrush may have in fact scouted the fact that Stargate is going up. He does see the fact that a building is warping in there at the top of the ramp. I don't know if he actually saw that that was a Stargate or not. That would have been a huge scout for our Zerg player. In these positions, though, Stargate play would be pretty predictable, I think.
Yeah, I think so, too. And let's see, we do have 2 Evo chambers going down. We don't have any other extra queens in production, but he does already have his creep connected. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple more queens go down. He's probably, I would think that he would know, that timing's possibly there. Already up to 4 gases. And Morphine, do you think we're going to see Muta? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know about that just yet, Perrin. I mean, one of the things about this early Stargate play, if you get Phoenixes out, is that if you go for an early Phoenix build, it automatically kind of deters Zergs from really going for that early Muta play, because they're like, well, why bother getting Mutas? He already has the counter out on the field. We do have a couple of stalkers that are at the front.
Stargates. And he's not getting any extra queens, so he might not be thinking about that. I'm just wondering why he's getting the lair and the 4 gases so early when he has a Roach Horn. I don't know. Maybe he's going to go infest a Roach.
It could also be for really fast Roach speed, that he just wants to go for like a really early bust on his opponent, like kind of just a huge like Roach build. I mean, one of the things about Stargates, like Stargates are good for a lot of different things, but like they're not really good for killing Roaches. You can go for Void Rays if you want, but I mean, Void Rays are going to take a little while, like trying to kill your entire opponent's Roach army. So that's in my opinion what I think Allcrush is doing. I think he just wants to go for a very big Roach timing attack. He is getting that Roach speed down on his Roach Horn. He is throwing down a Hydralisk Den too, so that could also explain why he was going for that very early lair. We have 4 Phoenixes out on the field. These Phoenixes are going to provide map control for Orc. It will allow him to go Overlord hunting or Queen hunting. As long as he stays active with those Phoenixes and doesn't lose them, these Phoenixes could be a pretty wise investment.
Yep, and those Phoenixes were seen by Allcrush. Yes, he sacked a nice Overlord over there. Unfortunately, we don't have anything up quite yet. We don't even have any Spore colonies. We do have 5 Hydra en route, but they're a little far away. So these 5 now, Phoenixes are just having free reign over here on the natural of Allcrush. Oh, apparently they decided to be nice and have stopped attacking.
Well, we did have a Zergling run by from Allcrush at the 3rd base location of Orc. Those Zerglings were denied, but they did in fact see that Orc was going for that 3rd base attempt. And actually, with all of these Hydralisks out on the field now, I think they will do a pretty good job of denying the remainder of this Phoenix pressure. So these Phoenixes are going to be useful for scouts, but I don't actually know if they're going to be all that useful for taking any more economic damage on Allcrush.
Yeah, I mean, they might just be annoying, because they are annoying. It's really annoying to have those Phoenixes. They can just run in and run out, and they're so fast. And it looks like those, and he did have to show his Hydra as well, unfortunately. So he showed his Hydra, and we have the natural response, which is that robotics base. So I'm expecting to see Colossus right away in response to those Hydra as well. And then we did see a Spire actually finish, but I don't see any Mutas.
I don't actually think he's going to be making Mutas with that Spire. I mean, both of these guys are really high-level players. Now, one of the things about Phoenix play is that Phoenix play obviously does promote a lot of Hydralisk play from your Zerg opponent. And so if you know that, you can stay a step ahead of them and go from Phoenix and transition into Colossus, which is what our Protoss player is doing. But on the other side, Allcrush already has a Spire available, which will allow him to make the natural Zerg response to Colossus, which are those corruptors. So both players are really like, you know, trying to like stay one step ahead of each other, but really at this point they're very even.
Yeah, and I think Allcrush was actually trying to force that because he's already got his +2 Zerg. Oh, no, that's the missile attacks, but he is getting his +1 air attacks too. So he's being really proactive on those upgrades and really thinking about that. And looks like he might be preparing for a little bit of pressure up here at the front, but we've got a really powerful wall here, so I think he's going to have to run back.
Yeah, that is actually a StarCraft 1-esque wall right there. That is gateways with photon cannons behind that. You are not going to break through that wall with roaches and hydras, ladies and gentlemen. So, Allcrush is actually being forced back. It looks like he wants to take that 4th base location, but Orc is really on top of this map. He already has this observer over here at the 4th location. It does see that those Zerglings are knocking down those rocks. So this is actually going to give Orc a window of opportunity that he can really utilize this very heavy Stalker's Colossus army that he has available. He has a window of opportunity that he can attack his opponent.
Well, you know, I don't think he's going to invest that much into Corruptors, actually, or I mean, Colossus, actually. He's got the 2, 3, but he is getting his Twilight Council, so it goes back to that idea of staying ahead. I wouldn't be surprised to see, you know, Templar Archives go down after this as well, just to sort of make sure he doesn't get pigeonholed into something that's countered.
I think he could actually also be using the Twilight Council for blink
upgrades,
or even just blink or just straight upgrades. But what I mean about this timing is that Allcrush has 158 supply. That's all well and good, but 158 supply, a lot of that is just in roaches. And roaches are one of those units where even though they're very cheap resource-wise, they're very expensive supply-wise. So even though the two players are relatively even in supply right now, because Orc is playing Protoss, and because his army is composed of Stalkers and Colossus as opposed to Roaches and Hydralisks, his army is actually more cost-effective in terms of supply. So I actually would be very supportive of an attack from Orc right now, as long as he executed it correctly. He does have to be careful. He can't lose his Colossus to those Corruptors.
Ooh, I like this. So we have one War Prism is just about done, so I'm excited to see what he does with that. And then we have a Fleet Beacon as well.
That's probably going to be for a mothership, which would be the late game, which has really become the standard late game response to a lot of the things that Zerg can really do on Hive Tech. So having that Fleet Beacon already available will shield Orc from any sort of like really heavy Broodlord composition that his opponent could be going for, which is what normally Zergs are going for on Hive Tech these days against Protoss.
Ooh, looks like we might have a forced engagement here. Ooh, nice flank by those Corruptors on the Colossi there, taking them down.
But those Colossus are getting really good shots all over that Zerg army, and even though these Corruptors are going to take down the remainder of those Colossus, there are still just a ton of Stalkers available. Those Stalkers did finish up with Blink. They are blinking forward, trying to eliminate the remainder of those Hydralisks, but 2-2 Hydralisks against 1-1 Stalkers are pretty good. They're taking down a lot of Stalkers with them, so supply is actually evening out for both players, and now we have 23 Roaches in production, so Orc is not actually going to be able to press his advantage that he took in that engagement. There are going to be way too many Roaches there to meet those Stalkers by the time they're able to move over there, but that is okay because Orc is actually taking his 4th base location at this point. And to answer your question, Pyronia, that warp prism is there so that he can drop those Zealots all over that 4th base location for Allcrush.
Yep, and so that War Prism did die, but it died a valiant death because it did accomplish what it set out to do, which was take out that base. So that means that we are up by 1 base for Orc compared to Allcrush. So that's a nice position to be at. And our mothership is in production there. So now we just sort of have this big, heavy Roach army, and I think that's really about it. We've got a couple Hydras, a couple Lings, but most of his army is in Roaches there.
Yeah, Allcrush is actually in a real tough spot at this point. He does have a supply lead over his opponent, but again, all of that supply is really just tied up in those Roaches. The only real advantage he has at this point is the fact that he is ahead of his opponent in upgrades. So I don't actually know if that upgrade advantage will be enough at this point, but here we go. Engagement down at the natural location of Orc. Those Roaches are being force fielded back by those a few sentries that is in that army. That one Colossus is doing work, throwing down a lot of splash damage all over those Roaches, enough for those Stalkers to finish off the remainder, and Allcrush is being forced to retreat.
Yep, and those pesky Zealots from that Warp Prism actually went back in and re-killed the fort that was building there for Allcrush. So he's just getting more and more behind as far as his economy goes. His main is being pretty close to mined out, you know, so that's going to be tough for him, whereas, you know, Orc can just sort of continue taking more and more expansions, and there's not really that much that can be done here.
Yeah, Allcrush, I really don't like the position that Allcrush is in right now. That mothership has just completed for Orc. He is at 193 supply now. He is almost maxed out on Blink Stalkers, Colossus, and a mothership. That is a really difficult unit composition for the Zerg player to deal with. There are no overseers with this army, so this army is going to be forced to retreat. And actually, I don't actually know, and neither does Allcrush. Allcrush doesn't think he can come back from that position, so he is forced to GG out of that game.
Yep, that was a tough position. As soon as he saw that mothership, he was like, oops, I'm done. So, you know, he was doing a nice job of
really, like, just afraid of that mothership and really just, like, you know, but, you know, it was a really smart decision by him to GG at that point. I think he really just demonstrated just how far behind he was at that point in the game.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the scores, they were only separated by 5,000 points. You know, so that was, like, it was a close game. You know, and both players were being really good about being proactive about choosing tech switches and things like that. Unfortunately, I think it wasn't quite the, you know, we just didn't have the level of tech. You know, the tech was just so far behind for Allcrush, and I think that really is, like you said, what happens there.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things is that, again, it really just comes back to the map. I mean, Orc really played that map beautifully. I mean, he had that whole thing planned out from the get-go. He had the supply block at the third base location of Allcrush, and then he went from there into a super heavy macro game. And really, those Phoenixes were just there to force those Hydralisks. And forcing the Hydralisk the way that he did really put his opponent, I think, in a position that Allcrush didn't really want to be in. I don't think he really wanted to have those Hydralisks out on the map that early. I think he just wanted to continue taking bases all over the map. And really, that's what his opponent was denying him the ability to do. So I love the way that Orc played that game. Really showed a very thorough understanding of how you can abuse Protoss on that map. That was a really good win for Team Infused, putting them up 2-1 in this series. We're going to have to see who their opponents are going to be sending out against Orc at this point. He does look like he's a pretty strong Protoss opponent right now. What do you think?
Yeah, no, definitely. He looked really strong. I definitely want to be sending another Zerg up against him. So, you know, I mean, he just took out a GM with a nice record. So, you know, at this point, you have to be a little bit worried, and that does put his team up 2-1. So, you know, we do have a couple more GMs in the wings for Infused, so hopefully that will work. But
well, we're going to have to find out who their opponents are going to be sending out against them. We do have more GMs available, so we should be seeing more high-level StarCraft action just after this. We're going to go to a quick commercial break. Stick with us. This is the ISTL.
Thank you, thank you. Be back soon.
And we are back. You are watching the Indie StarCraft Team League, and with you is Vindicare.
And Pyronia.
And we have Pyronia, and I'm sorry I talked over you for a second. Alright, so just real quick, I wanted to point out that the music that you were listening to while we were pausing is by an artist named Stencils. You can find him on his YouTube channel. You can just search that into the YouTube search bar for him. He was very nice to provide us with that music. And we are already going to be getting into the next game. It is going to be on GSL Daybreak. We have Sane coming out for Team Monomaniac. So it is going to be another Zerg versus Protoss, this time on the map Daybreak.
I'm a little bit nervous for this. After seeing Orcs play, I don't know that I would be putting out another Zerg, but we'll see. So, spotting down here in the bottom left-hand corner on Daybreak, we have Sane, our red Zerg player from,
Team
from Team Monomaniac, and you can actually find them over at, I think it's monoesports.com, and his opponent is Orc, who is our blue Protoss player from Team Infused, and he actually used to play with Gosu Gamers and has been GM for all 3 races. So, as to our question about whether or not he is on par skill-wise with our GMs from Monomaniacs, yes, he is. And he recently won some pretty nice tournaments, getting some decent prize money, 350 pounds, so that's about 750 or $700 US, so nothing too shabby there. So that makes me even a little bit more nervous that they're actually putting out another Zerg against him. And if you are just joining us, I am Pyronia, and with me is Vindicare. And big shout out to all of the teams in ISTL. We do have Impulse Esports and IP on deck for another clan war right after this, so stay tuned. We have lots and lots of ISTL action for you. So any other plugs you need to do here really quick, Vindicare?
No, actually, I just wanted to get directly into what's going on with the game. It does look like we are going to have a Forge Fast Expand from Orc on this map, which is a little bit more common than you would see on something like Calm Before the Storm. And to actually answer some of your concerns, Pyronia, I think what the Monomaniac is thinking is that Orc's PvZ was really tailored mostly towards Calm Before the Storm. Like I said earlier, he really played that map to perfection, how you could play it in that matchup. So I think Daybreak is a whole other map altogether, and whereas Calm Before the Storm has a statistical advantage for Protoss on it, I think Daybreak has a slight Zerg advantage in this matchup.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Looks like Orc is being a little bit pesky here and denying this expansion. However, we did have a pool first, so a little bit safer build, so we could definitely be seeing some pressure here. I think, what was it, almost a year ago now, 9 months when we had the Naniwa versus Leenock, it was just Forge Fast Expand, and so Leenock just sort of went roach bust, something like that, and, I think he did it 3 or 4 games in a row. So that could be an option here. He could choose to be a little bit more aggressive.
Well, I think at this point, I was actually going to disagree that you were going to see some pressure out of Sane, but, I mean, this is not a single pylon block, this is a double pylon block, so Orc is being very pesky with that probe, and really he's putting Sane in a position where he's going to start thinking about doing some aggression, because you don't want to just let your opponent get that Nexus up completely unmolested and then, have your own expansions delayed that much, so I think, but here's the thing. Orc is being super safe behind that. He is throwing up what looks like is going to be a full wall off, following that little bit of nastiness that he did at the beginning with those pylon blocks. So again, Orc really demonstrating a very comfortable understanding of the matchup, knows how to get inside of his Zerg's head already with that double pylon block. So now both of these hatcheries, even though they are going down, are very much delayed. So this is actually, I think this is going to put Sane into a position where he's a little bit frustrated starting this off.
Yeah, and that can just sort of throw your opponent off too. And we do see a similar timing as to last game with those assimilators, so I wouldn't be surprised to see another Stargate go down.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even disagree with that completely. I mean, that game plan that Orc went for in that last game is actually pretty standard all around. I mean, aside from a really heavy roach bust that I was advocating in the beginning of last game, there really isn't much that the Zerg player can really do about those Phoenixes. If they don't go for Hydralisk, well, then they just have to start spamming Queens. And obviously queens are not really useful very much offensively, and that allows the Protoss to just macro freely behind that Phoenix map pressure. So
Yeah.
that it's a pretty solid like overall game plan for Oric. I really like the way that he's playing these Protoss vs. Zerg games.
Well, and also this map in particular, it's really frustrating because it does take so much more to connect all three of these bases. So the last game, it's pretty easy to connect them by creep, but he's going to have to be very aggressive with his creep tumors in order to connect it in time, which it looks like he is starting that path. But you know, it is just harder and a longer walk to get units here to protect against those Phoenixes. So. Although it looks like he's not opting for the Stargate, he is opting for a robotics facility instead. So we'll be seeing something a little bit different, and he is taking his third gas there. So he's going to have a really nice gas income very shortly.
It's such a good point what you just said, Pyronia, about the distance between the third and natural base. I mean, me as a random player sometimes, because I don't always get Zerg on this map, it's very easy for me to neglect just how far away that third base really is. So, I mean, one of the most common builds that we see often in this matchup now are the Sentry, like, 3 Immortal timing pushes that you see very often to deny third bases. So, my favorite way of actually holding that off is actually getting out those Hydralisks, because Hydralisks actually do a ton of damage to Immortal shielding. I know Zerg players really just think, a lot of Zerg players really just think that Hydralisks are good for just one thing, and that's anti-air. That's actually not true. Hydralisks are very good against dealing with those Immortals, but one of the things is that Hydralisks are very slow off creep, everyone knows that, and if I don't have those bases actually connected by creep very early on, it can actually be a very rude awakening for the Zerg player.
Yep, and looks like we do have our third going down for Orc, as well as some Immortals popping out, so he's just cranking out a nice bunch of Immortals here, starting his upgrades. And we do have a nice creep spread, though, here from Saint. I mean, he's going to need it, so I think it is a good call that he's getting that, also being nice and proactive on his upgrades, getting Burrow already. I love Burrow. I think it's such a fun skill. I think it sort of reminds me of Lurkers. I really wish Lurkers had made it into the game. I think those were definitely like my favorite Zerg Brood War units.
Well, I have a rant about lurkers in general and why they didn't make it into StarCraft 2, but I'll get to that a little bit later. Actually, I'm starting to pick apart what Orc is actually doing here, and I actually think this is a really beautiful play. Alright, so he is going for those Immortals, right? Now, like I just said, Immortals are such a popular unit for aggressive timing attacks in this matchup right now that oftentimes Zerg players will just assume that it's coming the moment that they scout the fact that Immortals are on the field. But really, all Orc is trying to do at this point is take that very difficult third base on this map to take, because he's using those Immortals to ward off any sort of early, super heavy Roach timing push, like Stefano-esque Roach timing push. He's using these Immortals defensively as opposed to offensively, getting up that fast 3 base and just going straight for a huge macro play. I love this by Oric. I mean, we're going to have to see if Sane is going to be able to punish this. At this point, I think he knows what Oric is up to.
Yeah, and I do love, how defensive and how strong his protection at his third base is. So he's got that completely protected, so he can afford to keep his army up here. And I think it's going to be pretty tough, even with these units, for him to actually, he's not going to be able to push through with what he has right now. He does have a nice defensive structure, so I think it's a great choice. Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah, you can clearly tell. I mean, I don't even know this for sure, but it's just so obvious to me watching the way that Orc plays Protoss that he definitely played StarCraft 1. The way that he's lining up his buildings, the way that he's got like these warp gates defending those photon cannons, the sheer number of photon cannons that he's actually building too. It's really just so indicative of like somebody who's played a lot of Protoss in StarCraft 1.
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like he needs to be getting a few more. I think maybe he should have used some Guardian Shields a little bit earlier to possibly save that third warp gate. But I'm assuming he has the money. He'll probably redo things. All right.
He's throwing down additional warp gates in his main base, though. So those warp gates at that third base location are actually pretty expendable at this point.
Yeah, I think he just probably wants some more just to rebuild that wall.
Yeah.
Now those cannons are a little exposed, so it looks like he's going to try and split up his army here and catch most of Orc's army off guard. He has to decide where he wants to go to defend. So that's nice.
This is actually a great decision by Sane. He's really abusing the fact that Orc's army really just wants to stay together. Orc is trying to divide up his immortals evenly, but how do you do that against such a mobile Zerg army? And this is what I meant about earlier about this base being so hard to take. How do you defend both your natural expansion and your third base? I really like what Sane's doing here. There are Roaches and Zerglings that did manage to breach down that really heavily defended wall, and now Orc is supply blocked. He lost a lot of pylons in that, so he has to remake all those if he wants to remake 8 more units, but Sane's not going to let up. He has 185 supply of Roaches and Zerglings, and he is going to be aggressive.
Ooh, I am nervous. Lots of those immortals going down. Man, I mean, this is like Stefano-style play. It's just so frustrating. I'm glad I don't play Protoss, frankly. Specifically because of this one particular style of play. You know, he's got a superior army as far as tech goes, and it should be able to counter, and it's just not.
Well, the thing is that, like, Sane is just, he's playing a very positional game of StarCraft 2 right now, and he's just taking advantage of wherever his opponent is, and now he's going to be able to snipe that forge. Those Roaches might be able to get into the main base, but he is wisely choosing to back off. He's only going to lose a few Roaches. The remainder are going to get away. So Sane is just really pressing his advantage at this point. He isn't taking a 4th base, but he easily could behind all this, but he's once again maxed out. Like, I don't think Sane's ever going to go below 200 supply at this point.
I know, you know, and here's one interesting little statistic. So as far as resources lost, we're about 7,000 resources lost for Sane compared to just under 5,000 of Infused. And Infused, Orc, I just feel like he's sort of fighting to hold on at this point. You know, it's just like Sane can just be throwing away units.
He definitely can. That's one of the things about those Roaches. Even though I said earlier in the last game, Roaches are very inefficient supply-wise, but they are very efficient resource-wise.
Right,
so he can just continue throwing them away like this. Every single thing that he trades for those Roaches, be it a Stalker, an Immortal, probes. Roaches are cheap, man. You can just throw them away however you want. As long as you're doing some damage to your opponent, you are coming out ahead. And now look at what he is doing. He's just continuing to harass that 3rd base location, but he's keeping part of Orc's army in his main to contend with those Roaches over there. He's just not letting up.
Yeah, we do have these burrowed Roaches over in the main, so realistically he's doing a nice job of, keeping down the income as well as he's taking his 4th base. It is a baby base over here, and it only has the 6 mineral patches and the 1 geyser. I'm assuming he knows that and is still taking it anyways, but, you know, he's doing a nice job of just sort of forcing Orc's hand here.
Now, the one thing that Orc does have going for him is that even though his opponent has been up at about 180 supply for the last few minutes, his supply is slowly climbing, and if he can manage to somehow max out despite this constant pressure by his Zerg opponent, he will actually be able to counterattack with a much more supply-efficient army. I mean, this is the big thing that I have to keep reiterating. Roaches are great resource-wise, they're not good supply-wise. So, if Orc could somehow manage to get his army up to a very scary supply count, he will just be able to counterattack Sane's army, and with only Roaches out on the field, he won't actually be able to do much about it.
Yeah, and it looks like he is going to be trying to get some infestors there, to sort of counterattack that. And we do have that pesky warp prism that was so effective last game going down for the 3rd up here of Sane, and it is going to be able to take that out, I think. It's going to be so
There is one more
close.
transfuse available.
Yep.
Oh, this is going to be close. No, I think Sane's actually going to be able to clean up that Zealot count, but that he had to force a lot of Roaches back to deal with that, and which gave Orc the time that he needed to move his main Stalker Immortal army up to the front of Sane's 4th base location. So this is actually a very difficult position for Sane to be in. He is down by 10 supply to Orc, who is now taking a commanding position at the bottom of his ramp, and now he's going to be able to counterattack and give to Sane with the kind of aggression that he was receiving at his hands just a few minutes ago. And here's what I mean, man. I mean, Sane has so much supply, but look how easily those Immortals just clean up all of those Roaches. This is such a difficult position for Sane to be in. He is definitely going to lose that hatchery. I don't even think Pathogen Glands is done yet for those infestors. They are not.
Yeah.
There is no way. GG. Well played by Orc. I thought he was actually going to lose that game for a little while there, but
I did too. He held off. He held off. Using his buildings as defensive structures was beautiful, and he was able to hold off long enough, to make that Roach timing pass. So the roach timing was no longer viable, and that tech switch didn't happen fast enough. So when that army went to move from the Protoss, there were infestors on the field, but they were useless. So that was really nicely done by Orc. I love that sort of, Brood War style-esque play of just using your buildings for that extra little bit of defense that you need. So, to all the Protosses out there who are hating the Stefano-type roach pressure, that might be the way to go, just lots of static defense.
Yeah, one of the things though about one of the reasons why I think that worked, like I'm just wrapping my head around that game right there. Okay, so we're playing a team league, right? So Orc played the previous game, and in that previous game, he demonstrated a Stargate opening. So I'm thinking, and once again, also he opened with that double pylon block too. So I was thinking, and I think Sane was thinking that Orc was going to open up with something aggressive.
Right.
But he doesn't. He opens really, really greedy. He takes that really quick third base, and even though the Stefano style pressure is amazing on that map, one of the things it's better at denying the expansion from ever getting up in the first place than it is in actually taking it down completely, especially with that defensive wall off that Orc went for. So, I mean, just the way that he played that out, it was so methodical, so strategic. He always seemed like he was a little bit of a step ahead of his opponent. He just is really demonstrating such a superb knowledge of the matchup. It just brilliant play by Orc. I'm just gonna go back and say you were right, Pyronia. I'm not gonna say it was a wrong decision because Sane definitely played that very, very well.
Right.
But Orc is just such a powerful opponent at this point in Protoss versus Zerg. He clearly demonstrated it in those last two games. So he's putting Team Infused up now. I think they are up 3-1 over their opponents, which is Monomaniac Gaming. Excuse me, I don't know why I keep getting that name so jumbled up in my head. So they are now. They are backed into a little bit of a corner here. They are down where if they lose one more game to this powerful Orc Protoss player from Europe, that they will be out of this. They will be out in this first series. So, what do you think? Who do you think they should send out next? Do you think you should send our first Terran of the day? Or not our first Terran, but our first Terran versus Protoss of the day?
I guess I wouldn't necessarily. I definitely wouldn't send out a Zerg, because he's taking down some really strong Zergs. But I think they really just need a strong player, and they can't afford to send out someone who's just a Protoss sniper. Since they can't lose any more games, they can't send out someone who's just going to snipe this one person. It's going to have to be someone who's completely well-rounded and can face the rest of the lineup from Infused. So they really have to send out someone who is really, really strong. And I don't know, we've seen, I didn't actually check to see what Sane's record was there. If he's one of their other GMs, I'm not sure. So they need to send out someone who's super solid just in every matchup, which is really, really a tough position to be in.
Well, Sane's actually a rank 3 Masters with 228 wins and 188 losses, so he's definitely not a slouch.
Yeah, I wonder if he was their Protoss sniper, and it didn't work. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, he definitely played that well. I just can't reiterate enough how beautifully Orc played those last two games.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm nervous, and I think they did underestimate Orc, but maybe they don't have any spies in the stream chat, because we did see that he has been GM in all three. So if they didn't catch that little message, maybe they don't know. They are sort of playing blind as far as who their opponents are and who they're facing, since they're all playing off of this team account, and if they haven't done their research based on their website, they might not know who they're facing. So that could be a little bit of a disadvantage for sure.
I didn't even think about that, Pyronia. You have that beautiful brain right there just racking yourself around the team strategies. I didn't even think about that. That is so metagame right there.
Oh, in some ways. So it looks like Orc didn't really play Brood War. He played for 6 months and was up to rank B on IC Cup. So, not too bad. Apparently did Age of Empires Pro. So he is an older school gamer. It's not like he's, fresh into this. One interesting thing about Team Nightmares, who was the ISTL Season 1 winner, they're actually a predominantly teenager age team. So they're very, very young to be where they are. So I think Hendrilisk is one of their oldest at 19. So it's a really interesting, they're all very new players. They're newer to the RTS scene. So I think it's kudos to them for being as far along as they are at such a young age. And then kudos for this European team coming and playing over here on the NA server. It's so nice to get different variety of players here at the ISTL. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I love this. These not. I shouldn't call it lower league, lower professional play. No, just this the semi-professional play is that you get such a huge variety of players from all over the place. And actually, we do have our last player from Team Monomaniac. It looks like it is going to be Imuni. I think that's how you pronounce this dude's name. And he was telling me just in the chat right now that he was listening to the StarCraft 1 Terran music. And I love you for that, dude. I actually have all of the StarCraft 1 and Brood War music on a playlist that I play while I am actually laddering. So that just tells you the kind of old school gamer that I am. I get nostalgic so hard whenever I hear that StarCraft 1 music. So why don't you let me get the introductions for this game?
Wait, are we going to need to remake?
Oh, we might, because we have a
Are the colors up? Wait.
No, this actually is a little interesting.
Wait, are they allowed to do that? Did Orc
change? Orc is now a Terran player. Right? Yeah. We have a TVP, which is what I expected we were going to have, but it looks like we have from Team Monomaniac, we have a Protoss, and for Team Infused, we actually have a Terran player. So it does look like Orc managed to sneak his way into a different set of armor for this particular game. I don't actually know if he was really allowed to do that, but it looks like we might be able to do that. I don't know. I'm just wondering if Mooney actually knows that he's going against a Terran player.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly didn't notice, but it didn't occur to me to really check and see there. So it looks like against Protoss, he does play at Terran, and it looks like that was okay with our admin. So yeah, a little bit of a shocker there to me and Vindicare. Sorry, guys. But yeah, so it looks like Mooney is okay with that. So this should be exciting. Who's the Zerg player who plays Protoss when it's VVZ? Is it Thorzane? No, not Thorzane. He's Terran. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't. I don't actually know. But whoever that is, I don't blame you. I'm a random player myself, and ZVZ is actually the bane of my existence. But the one thing that I'm actually so confused about at this point... Okay, so now that we got the whole, Orc is now playing Terran and Mooney's playing Protoss situation figured out, why did Mooney choose this map? Alright, it's loser's choice.
If he chose it, but if he chose it based on thinking it was going to be a PvP, that could have been part of it.
It could have definitely been. It may have just been that Mooney wasn't aware of what his opponent was actually doing, but Orc is now playing a TvP on what is widely considered to be the most advantageous map for Terran in this particular matchup. So I really like Orc position in this particular game so far, just based off of the map choice. Obviously, map choice isn't everything, guys, so even though I'm making a big stink about it, that's because I'm a caster and I have to make a big stink about things that aren't really that important. It's kind of my job. We do have this probe in the main base of Orc. He is scouting the fact that this is in fact going to be a gasless expand, and actually this is going to be a very greedy gasless expand. This is a gasless expand that has the command center being built on the low ground, and it does look like we might see a one-gate expand, maybe not, because we don't have any additional resources being pulled for that Nexus. So we might actually see some early pressure to punish this very early gases expand.
Yeah, and it sounds like Mooney did know about the race issue here, or the race change, prior to choosing the map. So yeah, he might be choosing it specifically for some pressure. But then just as we see that, we have that low ground pylon. So yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. And we do have to keep in mind here that Orc has gotten GM in all 3 races. So, Terran is by no means really qualifying as his off race or his not so good race if he was able to get to GM. So
Definitely. I don't know about you, but I'm not a GM Terran player, either in
Me
North
neither.
America or Europe. All right, so these zealots and stalkers do in fact scout that a bunker is being constructed. We did have a trade for a zealot and a marine, which isn't the best trade for Mooney at this position, but this crucial scouting information does in fact tell him that his opponent is going for a very early economic build that isn't going to feature too much in the way of early tech. We do have 2 additional barracks going down for Orc. He is getting a tech lab on that barracks, so he's probably going to be going for early combat shields or stim for his Marines. And for Mooney, we have a robotics facility going down, so this is going to be a 3-gate robo build, which is normally the correct response to any sort of expansion-based build for the Terran player. This robotics facility is probably going to be used mostly for observers, if anything else, but we might see some immortals coming out of them.
So one thing I do like here is that Orc is choosing just to go with the 3 barracks. Something that happens is sometimes you see this sort of really aggressive, greedy Terran play, and they go for 4 barracks. And just adding that extra barracks really delays your tech even further. So by going to 3 barracks, it allows you to tech a little bit more. And against Protoss, it's really critical to have that extra tech, just so that you don't get into a bind where you have all of these, lower level Marines, and you might have a lot of Marines, but they might not be able to hold their own once we start getting tech from the Protoss. So I do like that choice by Orc. I think that's great.
It is really just a lot of the times when you're talking about build orders in StarCraft, I kind of think of it a little bit like driving a car. And what I mean by that is for various types of build orders, there's always different variations. You have the more defensive variation of the build order, the more defensive variation of the build order. So, for example, when you're going for this gasless expand, you have the really aggressive option, which is just like a 6 racks following up like it's just like a pure marine 6 racks build, which we've seen a lot actually, or at least I've seen a lot.
Yeah.
That's like the most aggressive version of the gasless expand that you can go for, and then you have like the more defensive variety that it looks like Orc is actually going for. And the way that I kind of describe it is, I kind of describe it like kind of driving a car, where you have like the general controls of driving the car, but then you have like the accelerator and how fast you want to go. You press it like further down versus you can slow it down too. So really, at this point, it doesn't look like Orc is going for full speed on this build order just yet. It looks like he's going for kind of like he is getting his tech up, so it is kind of like an in-the-middle variety of this gasless expand type build. And for Mooney, it kind of does the same thing. Both players are playing a little bit of a safer type game of Protoss versus Terran starting this out.
Well, one thing I love about Mooney here is he's getting all of these little pylons all over the place, and he has really nice scouting. So he's got really good map control and will continue to do so. And so, if Orc tries to take a pocket expansion up here or something like that, he can just warp in some zealots and be pesky. And so back to that idea of that tech switching. So we do have Templar archives on the way. So we might be seeing some Charge Lot Archon, or we could even be seeing, Storm. So, Orc does need to be ready for that tech. So if he had more barracks, he wouldn't be ready for that tech.
We do have this Marine Medevac force, Marine Marauder Medevac force, moving out on the map. They are actually just at this point looking like they want to clean up all of those pylons that have been placed by Mooney all over the map. These Marine Marauders are actually going to take control of that watchtower, and at this point, Mooney is just waiting for him to get charge out. He can't really contend with this Marine Medevac force until charge is done. And this is what I meant about the map. This low ground, high ground positioning of the expansions, of the natural expansion and the main base is so easy for Terran to take advantage of with this highly mobile, drop force that Orc has available to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. He does have one Orcon out, but, only one. It looks like it's enough to scare Orc away. However, Orc is doing a nice job of sort of forcing... Oh, it looks like we might see some elevator drops here. But Orc is forcing, a delay on that third by landing his factory there.
Yeah, at this point, Orc is really doing what he was doing in the previous games as Protoss. He's using this aggressive style that he that he's portraying right now, he's using it so that he can cover for his own third base. He doesn't want his opponent to get a third base up, which they're clearly not going to because he has that factory already landed in that position. And he's using these Marines and Marauders to keep these Zealots and these Archons stuck in the main base while he gets his own third base established. That third command center is just now being turned into an orbital. He can lift it off over to that location anytime he wants to.
Yep, and so that nice little scouting pylon over there ensured that Mooney's base did not get dropped. It did get cleared out, but there's still an observer over there, so that was a nice... Oops, and my cat just fell off of my computer there. Sorry about that. All right, here goes the factory.
We can still hear you if I run in.
Apparently he's bad at sleeping. They're like falling off of a bunk bed.
Yeah. Have you ever actually fallen off of a bunk bed? I had bunk beds in my...
I haven't, actually.
Yeah, I'm the oldest of three brothers, actually, just to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm the oldest of three brothers, and so when we were kids, we had bunk beds in our room, and I never actually took the top bunk because the one time that I think I did when I was real young, I actually fell off of it, and since then I was like, no, I don't want the top bunk anymore. Give me the bottom bunk.
Scarred for life, huh?
Scarred for life. I actually developed a fear of heights because of that. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh.
No, I'm just kidding. It's actually not that severe. We do actually have a slight upgrade advantage for Orc at this point in the game. His third base is, of course, done sooner. That factory did tell him exactly when Mooney was looking to take that third base location. And now at this point, Mooney is stuck with really just Templar tech at this point. He can't really afford to mix in Colossus with this build just yet, not until that third base location has been secured. So, this does give Orc a good opportunity to really start trading with his opponent. His economy is better, so what he needs to start doing is start whittling away at this very expensive Archon, Templar heavy unit composition. If he can take away some of those very heavy gas units, well then Mooney's not going to be able to start mixing in Colossus just yet because he has to maintain the Templar in that army if he wants to start mixing in other types of units with it.
Yeah, we already do have the Ghost, so he is, Orc is prepared for that switch. So he's prepared for the Storms, he's prepared for the Colossi, or for the Archons, and then he's also, I think, preparing for a tech switch to Colossi as well, because he is getting a second starport.
Yeah, he's just playing very, very standard, very good play, but we do have an engagement coming down here. We have Zealots coming in on the right-hand side, and actually all of those Ghosts did manage to go down without a single EMP, so this entire army is actually very vulnerable to Storms, but turns out I'm actually wrong. A single EMP did go down, wiping out those Templar of all of their energy, but it does look like that Mooney might have enough units to actually hold off this attack, so Orc is going to be repelled out of that third base location, but not after taking down a lot of Zealots with him.
Ooh, and those medevacs are actually extremely vulnerable, so he's able to pick off all but two, and one of those is very damaged. So that was quite nice. Ooh, and here's Orc being a greedy, greedy little Orc out here. He's going to go for the glory and try to take this gold in the center here.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking back to Warcraft 3 a little bit. He is actually going for that pillage buff on his grunts. just a super greedy Orc player that Orc actually is. But you know what? The position that he's in is actually really, really good. He has a supply lead over his opponent. Mooney's actually is not going to be very eager to actually start moving out and engaging his army on the open ground. Again, this is one of the things about Antigua's shipyard. The map is so wide open in the middle. That really plays into the way that Terran likes to engage Protoss armies in the late game. So Mooney's not going to want to start dealing with his opponent's army until he has a very good composition of Archons, Templar, and Colossus in that army, which does of course give Orc plenty of opportunity to start doing things like take a gold command center in the middle.
Yep, and I believe he is getting ready to start cranking out Vikings if need be. He does have reactors on both of his starports there. So the nice thing that having that allows him to do is he can still continue to make medevacs while getting out those Vikings. One thing that I've seen countless Terrans do, and I don't understand why, is they just rely on that one starport. So they sack their factory and then have the one starport, and then they're having to choose between making medevacs and Vikings, and they usually don't have enough of either. But if you just get that second starport, it can negate that sort of even your hands tied. So I'm really happy that he's doing that.
Well, one of the things right now, though, Pyrone, is that Orc, because of this greedy play that he's doing, just has so much money. I mean, look at the unit composition he has. There's actually 16 ghosts in that army. There are enough EMPs to spare on everything that he really needs to EMP. And speaking of EMPs, a good EMP does go down on all of those High Templar. Every single High Templar has been deprived of energy. There are no storms available for that army, but there are Colossus that are split up very nicely all along each side of the middle of the map. Both sides are taking very heavy losses, but those EMPs do look like they are going to be the deciding factor. Orc has taken that engagement rather convincingly, and because he is Terran, he can just send out more Marines, more Marauders, more Medevacs. He is going to start knocking on the front door of Mooney very early now, and the thing is, Mooney doesn't really have the economy to really replace those very expensive units that he lost in that engagement. Meanwhile, Orc is saturating this planetary fortress at the gold. He can just start putting on the aggression and not stopping for the next few minutes.
Oh, he almost lost all of his ghosts there. His ghosts are extremely low energy, not enough to cloak, not enough to EMP, and he almost ran him in there, but he realized at the last minute, thankfully. Yeah, and he has a stronghold here with that gold, so he's got that planetary, so it's going to be hard to dislodge that. And this factory, being annoying again, is down at this position that Mooney wants to take.
I really love the way that Orc utilizes buildings for the way that he plays. I mean, he was doing that. He was doing that with Protoss in the last game, but now he's actually doing that again with Terran. He's just buildings are supposed to stay still, man. They're supposed to be in your base. You're supposed to use them to build stuff. You're not supposed to be using them out on the map, blocking your opponent like that. What's wrong with you, Orc?
Well, and you know, one thing I love here, so he's stopped making Marines and Marauders. He's basically going just to making Vikings and Ghosts for the most part, which is just super cool. It's just a fun unit composition. So you can see some snipes, you can see MPs, you can see cloak. You know, at this point, heck, you might as well get some nukes. You know, but he's been using his money so efficiently that he doesn't really have a bunch to burn. So yeah, I'm really liking his play. I think maybe he's actually Thrall and we just didn't know it.
Thrall or one of the other Orc war chiefs. He's definitely looking like an Orc war chief right now, the way that he's playing. But to answer your inquiry, Pyrone, of why he's going for such a heavy ghost composition, it's twofold. The first is that, okay, every single ghost has EMP, right? How do you feed back that many ghosts? You can't feed back that many ghosts. EMPs are going to land. It's just a given. But the second thing is that those ghosts do 26 damage a shot against Zealots.
Right.
And the thing is that, like, look at Mooney's unit composition. He's being forced to mix in Stalkers right now because those charge lots are great at dealing with Marines and Marauders. They're not that good at taking care of Ghosts. Ghosts actually have a good bit of health. They do a lot of damage to those Zealots. And because there are so many EMPs available in that army, all the shielding on those Zealots are immediately going to be just completely evaporated. So, great unit composition for Orc. It looks like he does want to start putting on a lot of additional pressure right now with that really good unit composition that he has. Mooney needs to take care of those Vikings with those storms. That's really the only thing that he can really do right now. Good storms are landing on those ghosts.
Well, don't worry, he still has half a control group.
He does still have a lot of ghosts still left in that army, but it does look like Mooney is going to be repelling that army back to the planetary fortress, but I don't actually think he can actually attack into that position right now. Those Vikings are getting a lot of good shots on those Colossus. Meanwhile, those Colossus are doing a lot of damage to the bioforces of Orc, but I just think he has too many right now. I think he has too much stuff. There are too many medevacs on the field, too many ghosts, and that army is going to be repelled again.
Well, he doesn't actually have an observer with his, he didn't have an observer, Mooney didn't, with his army there. So since a good number of those units were cloaked, it was a little bit of an odd position. It looks like he's going to send a mini drop down here, probably to annoy the fourth over here of Mooney. There are some Templars, some cannons, so, you know, it's going to be repelled pretty quickly here, but...
Well, here's the thing, is that even though Orc does have a really good unit composition, he doesn't want to face against another super Colossus, Archon, Templar unit composition if he can avoid it. So he has to start taking care of these additional expansions, and because he has so much money to burn, forcing these smaller engagements just prevents Mooney from getting in that one big decisive battle that he wants to take this game.
And so then again, he is taking the other gold expansion, so further denying that and further pushing his forces closer and closer to the main base of Mooney here. very aggressive. But, you know, that's also got to play some mind games here on Mooney. You know, the idea that, whatever, I got this, I'm just going to go and take both of the golds, and what are you going to do about it? That's frustrating.
That is pretty frustrating. You're right. Orc is playing a very all-around game. He is demonstrating very good macro, very good micro, and very solid psychological warfare on his opponent. Just overall, he is just demonstrating a very solid level of play in virtually every aspect of the word. But now I am still a little concerned that he is letting his opponent get back into this economically by allowing him to take that 5th base location down at the bottom left. I really would love to see Orc send a side group of Marines and Marauders to take care of those expansions, but he is choosing instead to keep this maxed out Terran army together while he secures that secondary gold expansion.
Yep, and it looks like he's just biding his time for upgrades. So he has at 3-3, so he is a bit ahead on upgrades. Oh, and looks like he might be forcing the engagement here, so a lot of these ghosts coming over here.
EMPs just went down on every single Protoss unit in that army, save for a single Colossus. There are no storms available in that army. Orc is just going to march himself up into the main base, but there are a few High Templar to repel that army temporarily. But here comes the engagement. Protoss units coming down from both sides. Terran army is being backed into a corner, but a little bit of an overstim on Orc. All of those units are injured, but there are just so many EMPs down on that Protoss army. I just don't think there are enough Protoss units to actually repel that. They need those shieldings that they want to actually take care of those Terran units in a straight-up fight, and without shielding, well, I mean, the result is kind of speaking for itself. Orc is at 193 supply to 83. Mooney is forced to call GG, and that's going to do it for our very first series. Beautiful play by Orc, taking a 4-1 lead for his team. Team Infused takes it 4-1. Beautiful play by Orc once again. That was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that was amazing. Even though the score was 4-1 here, Infused, I think, did very well for themselves. I think that their games were very solid. I think where they made the mistake was in that game sending out the second Zerg against Orc. I think that maybe if they would have had a different player come out at the beginning, I think it would have been very different, and they would have been in the position that they were where they had to win this game against him. But overall, I love this series. This was so much fun. Really good series. So I hope you guys enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, I have to, even though Orc played that last game extremely well, I just think his overall play with Protoss against Zerg was just so fundamentally sound that I would recommend it to anybody who's still trying to learn, who's still struggling with that matchup a little bit. And it does look like we are going to be jumping immediately into our next series, which is actually going to be Team Impulse versus Team IP. And so I am actually excited about this. It is going to be, once again, starting on Cloud Kingdom. Pyronia, we are just being thrown directly back into the fire. This time it is going to be between two teams that I am a lot more familiar with. Team Impulse obviously is the host team of this tournament. We have to thank them once again for all that they are doing to make sure that the ISTL is functioning the way that it is supposed to be. And Team IP is otherwise known as Team Impressive Play. My brother's actually a member of this team. I don't think he's actually going to be playing today because I think he's actually at work. But I actually do know a lot of these players. I'm wondering to see who they're going to send out first. I'm not too familiar with their first choice, who's actually going to be Khan, a Zerg player for Team IP, and for Team Impulse, it looks like it's going to be Deceive. And Deceive does not have a StarCraft 2 profile on your realm. That is a lie, BattleNet. That is a lie.
I still see him as pending, so that might be why.
Yeah, so we are just waiting for Deceive to load into this game, but I'm excited. I don't even get a chance to catch my breath. I am just having to go straight back into another great high-level StarCraft 2 game being brought to you by the ISTL. And real quick, while we have a moment, I want to give a couple more. I want to give our shout-outs again to Maxed Out Studios. Thank you for the images that you guys have provided for the ISTL. If you're looking for overlays, or if you're looking for any sort of graphic design work done for your small project or business, check out Maxed Out Studios. That you can email Max, I think he is, max@maxedoutstudio.com. That's not Studios, it's Studio with just a single O. And then also Legends of Elveron. Thank you to Quaffle and all the work that you are doing to help make the ISTL successful. And once again, thank you to Impulse Esports for making sure that this happens. I love small-time tournaments like this. You'll hear me to go on my rants very frequently about how semi-pro esports is really the way that you make esports grow in this country. I know that if you've ever seen me cast before, I've done this rant, so I will spare Pyronia from my voice for a little bit while we wait for Deceive to load into the game for just a little bit. And what do you think about this, Pyronia? Who do you think we are going to be seeing first from Team Impulse?
You know, they have been having a few ups and downs lately. They lost a couple of their really strong players a couple weeks ago. You know, so I think that they're sort of in the point of redefining themselves. They still have a lot of really good players, though. So, you know, Duster is fun to watch. Deceive, Beast is still there. So, you know, they do have, you know, different people that they can be putting in. So hopefully they know that they're starting. You know, that might be where Deceive is. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, they did lose Bales, unfortunately, and Bales was solid. You know, so if you guys are a really strong player and you're looking for a new team, definitely check out Impulse. Those guys over there, they are just all phenomenal. I've really had a lot of fun working with them. They obviously run a top-notch production, as we see here over the ISTL. So definitely, you know, if you're looking for a place, they might be the ones to check out. So you go and check them out at impulseesports.com.
That's the nice thing about the ISTL too, Pyronia, is I know we don't want to play I know we don't want to play favorites for Team Impulse too much, but all of these teams are fantastic. If you are a higher level StarCraft player and you are watching this cast, please check out these teams if you are looking for a team yourself. I highly recommend that if you are going to try and make StarCraft a little bit more than just a hobby, to get yourself on a team. It is such a good idea. It opens you up to playing in clan wars like this. It gives you constant practice partners that are high level. There are so many benefits to being on a terrific team that I can't even list them all. But what I can finally list is that we finally do have Deceive loaded into the lobby. He is a Terran player. He is a rank 1 Masters player with 179 wins and 162 losses, so good record for Impulse Deceive. And from IP, he is a top 25 Masters with 103 wins, so we have a pretty even match going up for Game 1 of the series between Impressive Play and Impulse Esports on the map Cloud Kingdom. Here we go.
All right, yep. Starting off with Cloud Kingdom in a ZVT. We haven't seen a ZVT yet, or at least I haven't on this map for the ISTL, so this will be fun. All right, spawning up, or down here in the bottom left-hand corner, we have Team Impressive Play's very own Khan, and he's going to be getting it started for them. And he will be going up against Impulse Esports' red Terran player, who is Deceive. If you are just joining us, thank you so much. I am Pyronia, and with me is Vindicare. We are very excited to be casting this next series of the day for you. It is Impressive Play versus Impulse. So if you didn't just catch the last one, we saw a 4-1 victory of... See, I'm already spacing their names now that I don't have them.
It was Team Infused. Yeah, it was Team Infused and Monomaniac Gaming, just to rescue my co-caster for a little bit there. We did get to see Orc from Team Infused knock out, I'm thinking it was Mooney. Numi, sorry, excuse me. Now I'm the one blanking out. It was Numi for that was the final game of that series. He was able to take him down, showing an impressive play with an impressive play when we're watching Team Impressive Play. It was an impressive showing by Orc, demonstrating both a high level of play with Protoss and with Terran. But getting to the game at hand, we have a Terran versus Zerg on the map Cloud Kingdom. I actually really like this map for this matchup. There's a lot of interesting terrain features on this map that either race can really take advantage of. It's one of those maps where, like, Terran players don't like it for a variety of reasons, and Zerg players don't like it for a variety of reasons. Obviously, Zergs don't like it because there's rocks. Zerg hates rocks. Like...
And looks like Khan is being very serious about wanting to get his expansion down here, bringing 2 drones to try and battle out that pesky SCV. Unfortunately, he was able to get an eBay down, so that did not work quite as intended, but it did delay it just a teensy bit.
Yeah, that is going to force a pull first build out of IP's Khan, which is not something that he really wanted to do. Deceive does look like he is going to be saving up for saving up for a gaseous expand. It does look like he is stockpiling resources over 300 at this point, so it does look like he's going to be going for a 1 Rax expand. And now the question is whether or not Khan is just going to let his opponent do this, or if he's going to start throwing on some very early pressure like we saw Allcrush do in our previous series.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really good series, but did we see Allcrush go up against a Terran?
No, we did. It was Allcrush versus...
oh, right. He went up against Mooney.
Yeah.
No, not Mooney.
Yeah.
Moomin.
Yeah.
Mooney was the last guy. Moomin was the female gamer.
Yeah, Moonin. That's what I said.
Oh, I can't tell you said Mooney or Moonin.
Gamers out there, put a little bit more variety in your tags to help the casters out a little bit so we don't get your names confused.
Well, nothing can be as bad as last Wednesday when we had our first TVT on this map, and it was me high versus me low. That was challenging.
two different, and from 2 different teams too, no less, right?
Yes, that was pretty comical.
We do have a double gas going down for Deceive following this 1 Rax expand. This Overlord is going to in fact see that his opponent is taking a very early command center on the low ground. And again, I have to wonder, how is Khan going to respond to this very early, very greedy play that his opponent is going for? Is this going to prompt a very fast third base? That's something you can do against Protoss, but obviously because Terran has those fast Hellions, that is not something that Khan can realistically do all that safely, especially on a map like this one. We do have these Zerglings that are coming in. They are putting a little bit of pressure on Deceive's base, and actually those Zerglings are going to manage to get through the front door and get a full scout on Deceive's base. But because those Marines are there, I don't actually think they will do much in the way of damage. They are just there for scouts.
Unfortunately, a little bit of miss micro there from Deceive. He was sending his mule up there to follow those Zerglings, which unfortunately mules, unlike SCVs, can't attack. And it also forced a cancel on a supply depot that was out here as well to get his units closer to those Zerglings versus having to go all the way around the command center. So, it didn't really do that much damage with those lanes, but actually, was a little bit of a monetary deficit for Deceive. So, maybe it was worth it.
You know what, Priority? I think I've seen something for the first time I've ever seen it. I actually saw a mule transfer. I saw this. I just watched a mule being transferred from Deceive's main base down to his lower expansion. That mule was like, "Really? I'm on a timed expiration date, and you're transferring me down to the natural expansion? Are you serious, bro?" That was funny. I know it's not a huge deal, Deceive. I know I'm ragging on you a little bit, but that was just funny. I've never seen that before. We do have a supply depot wall off going up for Deceive right now, as well as Stimpack. It does look like he's going to be going for a very heavy bio unit composition to open this game up. He is getting that starport out too, so you're probably going to be seeing Marines and Marauders and Medevacs to open with this game. Maybe not Marauders, but definitely Marines and Medevacs. We have a pretty high queen count from Khan to start this game off. He has 5 queens on the field already, and obviously with that nice queen buff that they have that gave them so much additional attack range, they are very good defensive units in the early game.
Yeah, I mean, just look at this creep spread. It's so aggressive here. It's beautiful.
That is just a ton of creep. He's going to be gooping up this map everywhere. It is going to be worse than a frat house's bathroom. It is going to be like just goop all over the place. And we have that third base going down for Khan. He is telling me that I am absolutely wrong. He can take a third base on this map as long as he just makes a ton of queens to ward off those Hellions. So definitely taking advantage of the queen as a defensive unit since the new patch. It is really going to deny a lot of those Hellions coming from being much of a factor.
Yeah, and he's getting his units up. So Deceive a couple times here has gotten supply block just a little bit. It's like his timing is just slightly off, unfortunately. And it's just little things like that sort of put you behind when the skill levels are really similar. So I'm a little bit worried about that. I wonder if he got a little flustered. I don't know.
It could also be simply be Pyrone, and this is one of the things I was talking about earlier about giving these otherwise really great players on the ladder a chance to compete in the tournament environment, because nerves at this point could play an issue. I'm not saying that Deceive is suffering from nerve issues, but it could definitely explain why there is a little bit of a slip-up in his macro. But you know what? At this point, he is still playing pretty solidly. He does have a good army of Marines and Hellions out on the field. They are in a pretty good position to do some damage to that third base, but he's being wary. He knows that there could be banelings waiting for at the top, and again, he is just using this aggression to protect his own base. He is establishing a third base behind this. There are medevacs now on the field. These Hellions and Marines are making their way up to the third base location. There are banelings coming down here. Those banelings are pretty fast thanks to that very good creep spread by Khan. Khan is trying to connect with those banelings onto those Hellions, but all of those units are now making their way away from the third base without too much in the way of losses, but Khan does save his third base from any future damage.
Yeah, you know, and there's so much creep spread that he's going to know exactly where the units are. So great call there on Deceive. I think it's worth it to spend a scan to get rid of 4 of those creep tumors. I think that was definitely a good choice there. And he should be getting his third up here momentarily. I'd like to see some more upgrades from him, though.
It does look like he's going for an armory to start as the next building choice that he's going for, and that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
He is getting another engineering bay down too, so I think he might be getting the armory preemptively to start going for some very heavy upgrades, considering that he's dropping down 2 additional barracks. We have a lot more units coming out for this,
though, which I think is strange.
He does have a very significant army out on the field right now. He needs to be very careful. There are banelings in that army, but that is not a very good engagement for Khan. He was really engaging away from those banelings, but it didn't really matter. He still took down a lot of supply of Deceive's army, and now the supply count is at 92 supply for Khan, 97 for Deceive. Deceive is making his way up into the third base with those Marines and that siege tank. Those Marines are getting a lot of probe kills, but they are going to probably be repelled from the natural expansion by that spine crawler, but still, Khan is taking a lot of damage at that third base location. Will he manage to lose his hatchery? I think he will. That hatchery does in fact go down.
Beautiful. And those Marines and that siege tank still alive. He's doing a nice job of trying to use those broodlings and those lings, but they're going to go down fighting and take a lot with him.
Deceive's already managed to accomplish the damage that he wanted to cause with that attack. He managed to kill his opponent's third base, and now he already has a third base of his own, and it is a planetary fortress. Planetary fortresses are obviously not something you really want to have to run up against this early on as a Zerg player. There are more Marines, more medevacs, and more siege tanks in production. Deceive is ramping up his economy right now. We have upgrades going down from both of those engineering bays, and there is just a lot of Terran units out here for Deceive.
Yeah, imagine if he just had combat shields there. And I think he has forgotten about combat shields, perhaps, because it's not researching.
Deceive, if you can hear us, I really hope you can't, because then that would mean that you were cheating. Please research combat shields. You are making Pyronia very upset right now. We do have infestors out on the field for Khan. He is going for an infestor Zergling unit composition, but these infestors are a little bit late to the party. The Khan does lose that third base location once again, and now it looks like Deceive is just going to pack up and go home. He might clean out some creep before he goes. Khan is really just trying to get some additional bases down on the map. He doesn't want to fight a 3-base Terran as a 2-base Zerg, and why would you?
Yeah, definitely. We do need to get some more medevacs on the field here, especially against those infestors. That one little medevac is healing its heart out, but unfortunately now it needs some more things to heal. So, you know, the 3 medevacs should be able to help that one Marine, but he needs a
once again, Deceive has been pushed back by Khan, but Khan is in a really difficult position. Deceive is really denying him from taking any additional bases. He is trying to get that third base up at that side base location that you don't normally see Zergs take on this map, but I mean, the supply advantage is so heavily in Deceive's favor, as well as the worker advantage too. Even though Khan has 71 workers, I mean, his saturation is completely oversaturated at this point at both of his locations.
Yeah, and we do have a planetary fortress of the third for Deceive, so it's a very strong third, and it's going to be really hard for Khan to push that.
We have another attack coming down here for Deceive, denying that 4th base location, and actually Khan didn't really control his infestors all that well. He managed to get one snipe down, and only one fungal growth did go off on those Marines. So Deceive is in a really good position at this point, 149 supply to 119, pushing back up into that 3rd base location. If he manages to deny it again for the 3rd time, I really don't know if Khan can come back, but here comes the engagement. There's only a few Zerglings in that army. A lot of them are being cleaned up by those Marines on the low ground and that siege tank. Khan is waiting for more Zerglings in that army to buffer for those infestors before moving in, but that third base hatchery is going to go down again, and we have another attack going for Deceive to Khan's 3rd mining base, and actually he's going to lose this because there are no units over on that side of the map to really repel this Terran force. Khan is really just being shoved back into a corner by this pincer Terran attack. Khan can only choose to attack one army. Here it goes. He does manage to fungal growth all over those Marines. Deceive does lose a handful of Marines, but manages to kill once again Khan's mining base. Deceive up 169 supply to 105.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you know, just from a sheer income, I mean, we're looking at 1,600. I think there must have been some mules dropped to 800 to 900 for a Khan. So, I mean, just from an economy standpoint, I mean, he's just not going to be able to maintain this.
Eventually, what Deceive is actually playing TVP or TVZ as if he was the Zerg player at this point. He is just an endless swarm of Marines, siege tanks, medevacs across the map. And even though Khan does have those infestors only have so much energy. Every single infestor is vital. Every single Zergling is vital. He can't afford to continue trading units like this forever. His main base is already mined out. His natural base will be soon to follow. If he can't secure a 3rd base and quick, he is just going to lose this game to Deceive, who is still up 143 supply to 88. Khan is being forced to long distance mine. A lot of those drones are being gunned down, and I think this is actually going to force a GG out of Khan. He's just being strangled to death.
I think Khan went a little greedy. He saw all these medevacs out there in the open, so he wasted a lot of his fungals trying to get those medevacs down, and then when the army came quickly behind, he didn't have any fungals for the Marines. So the Marines were just able to tear through anything. I mean, I don't know that that would have changed the game, but it was a little bit of a, you know, poor decision there that definitely put the last nail in his own coffin, unfortunately. So, Team Impulse now up 1 game to Team Impressive Play. So, who do you think they're going to be sending up? Who's on their roster?
Well, I don't have their roster open in front of me, but they got a good number of really good players available. Who they're going to send out next against Deceive is actually going to be very important, because obviously that first game is so important in dictating the way that the rest of this game is going to go, especially if it's going to go to a Game 7. But Impressive Play has a lot of really good players on their team. They have guys like Amadil, who's a GM-ranked Zerg player. They have a lot of really good High Masters and a few Grandmasters players of their own. How are they going to be able to deal with Deceive? I'm not quite sure yet. They might send out Amadil next, actually, but that would be another Zerg versus Terran, but on probably a different map. But you know what, guys? I think we will probably find that out in just a second. We need a commercial break, and I need a quick break myself personally. So, see you guys back in about a minute. This is the ISTL with Vindicare and Pyronia.
Thanks.
pull this off, and Nexus is probably going to be going down. That one Colossi, and there's some ridiculously lagging. GG!
Nice. Down to the and those Vikings are going to focus down. All those Colossi are probably going to go down.
Yeah, he doesn't even have Link yet.
Hi guys, and we are back.
Yeah, we are back. This is going to be the second game of the matchup between Team Impulse and between Team Impressive Play for the Indie StarCraft Team League. If you are just joining us, I am Vindicare, and with me is the lovely Pyronia. And we can hear you, Pyronia.
Hello. Hello. I'm teasing, sorry.
We have it looks like it's going to be a Protoss player coming out for Team Impressive Play. It looks like this is going to be Seth N. And I am being messaged. What's up? Okay, I'm getting a quick note about the player choice from Team Impressive Play. I will have more about his achievements in just a little bit. The loading screen is coming up, so we have the second game going to be played on MLG Shakuras Plateau.
Okay, so up here in the top left-hand position, we have Impressive... Oh, nope, this is Impulse's Deceive, who just won a very nice TVZ in a very Zerg-like fashion. And he's going to be going up for Impulse Esports. You can check them out over at impulseesports.com. They are sponsored by IV Graphics, so props to those guys. Let's see here. He's going to be going up against Impressive Play's Seth N. What can you tell us about Seth N, Vindicare?
Alright, well the information I was just given is that Seth N have won his CSL tourney free flight to MLG. So, Seth has actually got a sponsored flight to compete at MLG Anaheim, which is actually amazing. CSL, if you don't know, is actually the Collegiate StarCraft League. It is basically a network of colleges that brought their StarCraft clubs together to kind of create kind of an NCAA of StarCraft. They are an amazing operation. If you guys are looking for more semi-professional esports, the CSL is a great organization. I've heard nothing but good things about them. So great achievement by Seth to earn that free flight to MLG. And we have a pause. A pause from Deceive.
Do you know what team he plays for?
Well, he plays for Team Impressive Play.
His collegiate team.
I actually don't know. I didn't get that information from... let me see if I can ask. Oh, God. That actually just went away. All right. We'll probably be able to find that out later. I had the chat window open a second ago, and now it's not there anymore. He plays for Rutgers. Thank you, Tunk. He says plays for Rutgers. I don't know where that is. But either way... great accomplishment, just kind of a key example of the kind of high-level player that we are seeing at the ISTL. And again, I have to go back to just giving props to Team Impulse for allowing these guys to have this forum to play on. These semi-professional teams, they just have so many good players, so much talent, that if they just had the ability to actually showcase that talent, they would be able to attract fans, attract sponsors, and all the wonderful things that come with it. So I'm really supportive of all of these teams and all the players that play on them. I just love StarCraft and I love esports. So organizations like the CSL and the ISTL are just great all around.
Yep, and that's definitely why I do love casting for the ISTL. You know, we need a lot of love here to showcase these teams, to help them get sponsors. Team Nightmares, which was our Season 1 winners, they actually have landed a really nice sponsor now. So, you know, kudos to them. And, you know, it's great to just get up-and-coming teams as well as players more notice in this type of avenue. So please do your guys' part and make sure that you are retweeting this link. Make sure that you are bumping threads on Reddit, on Team Liquid, and giving, getting just the notice out there. It really, really helps You know, if we can share the love in esports, that's what we want to do. We want to see this prime time eventually, and it's going to take sort of a grassroots movement by all of us StarCraft 2 fans out there to make that happen. So definitely do that. So into the game, we're starting to see an expansion here.
Yeah, this looks like it is going to be a gasless expand versus what is probably 99% sure it's going to be a one gate expand. So we have the most standard opening out in that you will see in the TVP matchup. This is obviously on Shakura's Plateau. Shakura's Plateau is actually a great map for Terran versus Protoss, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There are so many little things that either side can take advantage of. Obviously, I think the middle plays out a little bit into Colossus heavy style play, but there are just so many little gullies and cliffs and so many different things that Terran can abuse with drop plays, so that this map is just a great map for this matchup in general. We do have a Stalker and a Zealot going up here to harass the front of Deceive's base. We have 2 Marines going down, but Seth did take a lot of damage on that Stalker and did manage to lose that Zealot, so a pretty even trade for both players. But Seth does now know that command center is there, so both players are pretty well aware of what the other one is doing at this point, and knowledge is half the battle in StarCraft 2. How are we going to see them react to what the other one is doing?
Yep, and looks like we are seeing a bunker go down, so Deceive maybe got a little bit worried about the pressure that was there. He is getting concussive shelves for his Marauders. I do like that. And then we're seeing a Forge go down for Seth N. So, you know, might be seeing some fast upgrades there.
Definitely, Priorino. This early Forge is going to allow Seth to go immediately into upgrades for his units. There are only 2 gates out on the field right now, which is a little bit unsafe. And actually, one of the things about going for that early concussive shell on those Marauders, it does give the Terran player the opportunity to be a little aggressive out on the map, because it gives his army the ability to kite, slow Zealots and Stalkers out on the out in the middle of the map. So will we actually see Deceive go for some kind of early map control, or is he just going to remain passive in his base with those Marines and Marauders? Seth is going for that armor upgrade and dropping down not just 1, not just 2, but 3 additional gateways. This looks like it might be a big gateway timing attack, timed up with that fast Forge for those early upgrades. So this might be a fast 1-1 timing push.
Yeah, I would agree. He has been chronoing out that upgrade as well, so he's really been very aggressive. So I think that he has had this planned out. He's had to save chronos, things like that. So I think that this has been the plan all along.
It does look like this is a very intentional build, and now this definitely does look like it is going to be a massive gateway attack coming up from Seth. He is finishing up that +1 armor. Will he wait for +1 attack before he moves out, or is this just going to be a +1 armor attack build? He isn't making any more probes. Yes, he is. He is continuing to make probes, so it does look like this attack is going to be synced up for that +1 attack before he moves out, or is he? No, he's actually just going to move out with this army of Stalkers, Sentries, and Zealots. What does Deceive have waiting for him? Well, he has a handful of Marines, 18 and 5 Marauders waiting to meet that army, as well as his starport is almost done. So he'll be able to start medevac production as soon as that starport is finished.
Oh, and you know what? Deceive is going for a 3rd here, so this could be very dangerous for Deceive. He's going to be spending money on that. And we already have 1 proxy pylon, and we have a 2nd one going down. I'm a little bit nervous for Deceive here. I think that this is a very specific timing. Oh, and he's leaving his bunker.
He's leaving the high ground. That's actually the worst thing that he could be doing right now, Pyronia. He could have potentially held this attack if he was at the top of the base, but now his army is out in the middle of the field.
The probe knows.
The probe knows. He does know that that army is out in the middle of the map, but actually that isn't that many units for Seth, and Deceive does have Stim with really good control from Deceive. He might actually be able to take down that gateway-heavy army of his opponent, but we are having more reinforcements being warped in from Deceive. He will be able to deny that SCV that is making them, and actually medevacs are now on the field. This is a really even engagement for both sides. All those Terran units are injured from all those stims, but that is Terran armies with stim, but there are just too many gateway units down on the low ground. They are going to deny that third base expansion. Deceive needs to book it back to the front of his base. He needs to be able to defend that bunker. There are just so many gateway units coming up there, and here come the SCVs. Those SCVs are trying to get a good repair on that bunker, but they're being force fielded off. Seth will be able to take down that bunker. There are more SCVs being pulled. There are Marines and Marauders behind those SCVs with stim to back them up, and it looks like Seth is actually going to wait for another wave of reinforcements before continuing to move up that narrowly defended choke. Here it goes, the other engagement. There are Zealots in the front, but there are force fields that are preventing a lot of those Marines and Marauders, but actually those force fields are now starting to work a little bit against Seth. Those Zealots can't actually engage the remainder of those Marines and Marauders. There are still a lot of Stalkers and a lot of Sentries, and not that many barracks units coming out here, but now Seth has pushed Deceive back into his main base. He has firing position on that command center, and it does look like Deceive will be able to deny that natural base expansion.
Yep. You know, a couple... Oh, looks like we're still going to be having more engagements. I'm not so sure about this for Deceive. I think he might just be trying to make it happen for him, but I think that this army from Seth N is going to be able to push through.
But this is a really good position. If Deceive is going to be holding this would be the place to do it. He is right on his production facilities. He does have Marauders being produced 3 at a time. He does have a lot of additional barracks. Sorry, only 2 Marauders at a time, but a lot of additional barracks producing Marines. He might be able to hold this top ground position with those Marines and Marauders, but again, a lot of the damage has already been done. He has lost his natural expansion. He's being reduced to a single mining base, but he is pushing back Deceive's army. He is pushing back Seth's army, excuse me.
Yeah, you know, he's doing a nice job of working with what he has, and there were just a few little misclicks in there that, you know, had he not made those misclicks, you know, it might be a little bit different. He did put some SCVs in the bunker initially versus the Marines, so if he was able to repair that, I think it would have been a little bit different there. But, you know, the other thing for Seth N, I'm really surprised that he didn't just go into the main when the army was down there, when Deceive's army was down there at the 3rd. Because he could have just force fielded the ramp the entire time.
That could have been something that he could have been doing, but this game is still not over.
No, it's not.
Deceive does have a pretty good supply of Marines and Marauders. The supply, even though it is in Seth's advantage, is actually not that wide. The supply advantage is only 74-262, and remember guys, this is a Marine and Marauder army with stim. Marines and Marauders with stim are actually still really good. It doesn't matter how many of them you have. They just seem to always be able to come back no matter how badly the odds are stacked against them. So Seth is actually going to back off a little bit. He is going for that 3rd nexus down on the low ground, and Deceive is actually going to start counterattacking.
So do you think that, Deceive's medevacs out there in front, one of them gets sniped. Unfortunately, he was sort of moving and they don't have any energy to heal, so they were out in front of the army, so that was unfortunate. But, you know, there's not that much here.
The thing is that Seth doesn't have any splash damage out on the field.
Right.
Even though Deceive only has a single medevac, he does have stim. That allows these Marines and Marauders to do a lot of micro to these gateway units, and without any sort of splash damage, they can remain so cost effective, and they are being so cost effective. I still think that Seth actually will be able to hold back this Marine and Marauder force, but Deceive is just getting the most out of these units, and he is continuing to rally units across the map, making the most out of the fact that his opponent does not have the tech that he needs to stop this attack. And with only gateway units, I actually don't know if Seth will be able to continue holding this back forever. There aren't enough sentries to actually keep that army down on the low ground, but this army has been stopped. There aren't any more medevacs on the way. The army has been is only staggering across the map now. They are not together, but neither is Seth's army, and actually his bank is down to very, very little. He only has 80 minerals left. He doesn't really have the money he needs to make the units, and he needs to stop this. I actually think that Deceive might pull a comeback in this game.
He might. Well, you know, he hasn't restarted making Marines. He's just going for broke, or SCVs. He's just going for broke here, and he's whittling down that economy advantage that Seth N had, which was really the main advantage that he had here. So he got a bunch of those probes that were used sort of as defense, and he might actually be taking out this natural here. We do have the 3rd up for Seth N, but he hasn't ever been able to transfer any of the probes. So this is a really interesting matchup.
Now that third base location for Seth actually does him no good right now. He needs to devote all of his resources to defending his main base, and actually I just think that it's too many Marines and Marauders.
Yeah.
Those two medevacs are just keeping them so cost effective over his opponent right now, and again without Splash, Marines and Marauders are so good at microing against them. Look at that stutter step, not losing a single Marine to those probes. Like, those Marines are being backed into a corner, but they are just remaining so cost effective against those Protoss units. It does look like Seth might actually be able to hold back the remainder of his base, but here come more Marines. I think those Marines might actually be the straw that broke the camel's back. There are just no more units for Seth to defend against this attack. He only has 100 minerals left. It does look like the Sieve will be able to take this game. I can't believe what I am seeing here, Pyronia.
I know, this was just a crazy, crazy game. You know, most players I think would have been like, shoot, I need to macro up, I need to get more minerals, but instead Deceive just saw this opportunity to possibly try and go in for the kill shot, and that's exactly what he's been trying to do. You know, so we've got 2 sentries and 2 stalkers versus 12 Marines, 1 Marauder, and 2 medevacs. So it's just a much stronger army here, and yeah, I mean, this is just absolutely insane. I did not expect this at all.
The bank for Seth is almost non-existent. He can only make a few units, and again, the only units that he can make right now are unupgraded gateway units. Those gateway units only have those +1 upgrades. They don't have charge, they don't have blink. He just can't remain cost-effective enough to hold back this army with the meager probe count that he has been reduced to. Deceive is able to actually lift off that command center, move it back to his natural expansion. He can just keep doing this, and honestly, I just don't think Seth can actually come away with this. He doesn't have any more probes left. His minerals for his main base has actually been reduced to almost nothing. That last zealot is finally going to die. Those probes are all that Seth has left to hold off this attack. Those Marines and Marauders are going to kill out the remainder of those probes. You should be seeing a GG in just a moment. Beautiful game by Deceive. Really just holding on at his main base, allowing him to come away with this game that I don't think that he would that I didn't think he was going to take.
Yeah, I didn't either. You know, this was a really interesting, you know, it was an interesting choice by Deceive, and it was definitely the right choice. And I think most players would not react in that way, and I think that's why it was so powerful. I mean, Seth N just didn't pull back and turtle. He kept on pushing when he maybe should have just pulled back to turtle, and rather than, you know, trying to go in for the kill, he just kept on going for you know, he kept on going for the kill versus pulling back and macroing up. So that was a really, really interesting game overall. So well played by both sides. That was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I think the key right there was exactly what you were just referring to, Pyronia. The overextension, trying to breach that front door to Deceive's main base. I just think he lost too many units there, and when he was forced. Here's the thing about Stim. I make such a big deal about Stim because it is such a big deal.
It is a big deal. You're right.
All right, 2 things. 1, Stim allows you to micro against unupgraded gateway units. And when I say unupgraded, I know he has the +1 attack and the +1 armor. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that he didn't have blink. I'm talking about the fact that he didn't have charge. They were slow zealots and slow stalkers. So 2 things. 1, with Stim and medevacs, you can micro your Marines to completely nullify those slow zealots, which is what Deceive was doing. But 2, and more importantly than that, if you could think that the kiting is not important, but 2, when Deceive managed to push back Seth's army into the middle of the map, that Stim pack allows him to actually run down those units.
Right.
It's kind of like a cavalry charge, like running down the remainder of the infantry. Like, you're trying to retreat back to your base to rally and regroup, but because you have Stim, those Stim units with those concussive shells just mowed down so many of Seth's troops, and so by the time that the engagement actually happened at the top of Seth's natural expansion's ramp, the supply advantage, the army supply, not the total supply, because then at that point you're looking at like worker supply added in. The army supply actually favored Deceive, and because he had superior tech, because he had Marines and Marauders and medevacs with Stim versus only unupgraded gateway units, he was just able to come away with that. So that just snowballed out of control. It was a slight overextension at the beginning.
We saw some, you know, mismicro, some mismanagement of units by Deceive. You know, he lost a couple medevacs in there because they were just sort of running up ahead of the army, and when they didn't have any
energy to heal the units. They just sort of ran ahead versus stopping. So he lost some really important units, and he was still able to pull out a win. So, I mean, it just shows you how strong Terran is in that early game. And, you know, I think in general, yeah, the stutter stepping also, as Maureen says, was beautiful. You know, it was just beautiful micro in general, but, you know, it just shows how much leeway Terran has in that particular moment. But I still do wonder if, you know, if we'd seen a different choice by Seth N, because there was that part where all of all of Deceive's units were down at the third he was taking. If he would have gone in with his units into the natural and then, you know, been able to force field off, he might have been able to take out a lot of the units while keeping his own. I don't know. It's hard to say, but that was just a really fun game to watch. So great play from both players. And gosh, you know, IP has to be kicking themselves now. That was a frustrating win, and they're down 2 games now as a result.
Definitely. Honestly, I think that at this point, I'm looking at that game like Deceive stole one that Seth N should have won that game, and it was just a slight overextension that just snowballed out of control. So IP is definitely feeling like they just had a game stolen from them. I'm definitely thinking that Team Impulse thinks that they just stole a game away from IP. They're in a tough spot now. They have to throw something really big against Impulse right now. They don't want to be down in that 3-0 hole. They have to send out one of their better players to take down Deceive right now. Who is IP going to send out next? They have their backs against the wall right now. How are they going to deal with it? We'll have to find out in just a little bit. But we will find out just after that break, so stick with us. This is Vindicare and Pyronia for the Independent StarCraft Team League.
To hold us off, and that just is probably going to be going down that one Colossi, and there's the ridiculously lagging GG!
Nice. And those Vikings are going to focus down. All those Colossi are probably going to go down.
Yeah, he doesn't even have Blink yet.
And we are back.
And we're back. Oh, Jinx. All right, so we still don't have a game yet here.
Well, I think that IP is really taking their time, really trying to consider who they should send out next. And actually, this is a really crucial moment for them in this first round series against Team Impulse. Who they send out next is going to have a big impact on the way that this next series goes. But Steve is playing pretty well. That decision to actually go for broke and just, you know, completely put on the aggression after he was backed into that corner, that was just a brilliant decision. So, I mean, he's definitely playing very well. IP's going to have to send out a really good player if they want to take him down.
Yeah, and we'll just give a little shout out to our sponsors here over at the ISTL as well. So a big thank you to Maxed Out Studios, who did our video and sound. So if you are in need of any sort of sound work or video work or graphics, things like that, they are the ones to get in touch with. Let me find their web address. I'm going to put their email in the chat. So if you're needing any sort of graphics, things like that, they are working specifically with esports. So nice bunch of people over there. And a big thank you also to Elveron, Legends Thereof, who is, let's see, it's a text-based sort of MMO type game. So if you're looking for something to do when we are not streaming, you can definitely hit them up. And they're actually giving away a $50 prize to the most valuable player from the entire season for ISTL. So that's definitely nice. So players out there, not only will your team win money possibly, but if you are the MVP, you yourself will be getting $50 in your pocket. So, you know, maybe Deceive is in the running for that there after that last win. It might be an MVP play for him. We'll see.
Well, he has a really tough opponent in Orc from the previous series, but we definitely have two very good individual performances so far today on day 1 of Season 2 of ISTL. Deceive putting up Team Impulse up 2-0 over Team IP, and it looks like we are going to be seeing a TVT on Daybreak next.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so it looks like we're going to be seeing IP Stylen. He's a rank 15 Masters. So 228 wins to 221 losses. So not that, pretty even win-to-loss ratio there. Let's see if there's anyone exciting in his pool here. I always like checking.
Clearly, though, Pyronia, IP, they had a lot of time to decide who they were going to send out next. This decision to send out Stylen, it's clearly the one that they want. Perhaps they think that Deceive just demonstrated too strong of an edge in those first 2 games, so maybe they think that they can take him down in this TVT on Daybreak. We'll have to find out.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe he is a TVT sniper. They do have a little bit of leeway, only being down 2 games versus 3, so it might be possible that they can send in a sniper and still succeed and bring back the series. So here we go, Stylen from Team Impressive Play. He needs to win this game to really keep his team in the series and not put them into a situation where the next player up has to win every single game in the matchup in order to win. So let's hope that he can do that. And he is going up against our Red Terran, who is Deceived from Team Impulse Esports. We just saw him win a game that Vindicare and I thought he was most definitely going to lose in a TVP on Shakuras. So really nice game. And if you were just joining us, thank you so much. I am Pyronia, and with me is Vindicare, and we are super excited to be casting the ISTL Season 2 for you guys here. It is the Independent Indie StarCraft Team League, and we're featuring all sorts of teams that are semi-professional, still in the path of getting sponsors, getting their players notoriety and fans. So thank you so much for supporting us. Go and bump threads for us, bump Reddit posts, TL threads, follow us on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter. I am Pyronia. How can they get a hold of you, Vindicare?
Getting a hold of me is as simple as typing KT Vindicare into Google. I am on Twitch, I am on Twitter, I am on YouTube. Basically, if you want to find me, that's my tag. If you want to email me, it's ktvindicare@hotmail.com. Just type that name, KT Vindicare, into Google, and you will find me. And you will find Stylen actually going for a gas first. This is actually the first non-command center first build that we've seen in TVT today. So we have a gas going down for Stylen that will allow him to do all sorts of different things to open this game up. And Deceive is actually going to scout that early refinery, which is probably going to prompt him into doing something other than a command center first build of his own.
Yep, I would expect that as well. It was an early scout there, so he's probably just checking for any sort of crazy shenanigans. Because, we are probably in a point where he is going to be expecting some sort of shenanigans and expecting some sort of snipe for himself. So we do have a fast tech lab here, so I think his spidey senses are probably just going. And I would expect him to play a little bit more defensively and conservatively.
Agreed. Actually, this very early tech lab for Stylen, actually it seems indicative, and it is of a Reaper build.